annual budget is to be drafted by the Stewardship and Finance Commission. And then it is adopted by the quarterly conference. A budget consists of proposed expenses based upon the previous year, and then generally you add 5% to allow for increase. And then in addition to your fixed expenses, you include any special projects and savings. So this is why it's important to look at things like building improvements and where we want to grow, how we want to grow, so that we can put things in a budget. Now, a budget doesn't mean you have to do it. In a sense, it becomes a guide and a goal. And so, of course, if you don't raise the money, we can't spend it. But if it isn't there, we won't spend it. In a church administration class that I had in seminary, they encouraged us to see the budget like a recipe, and where the most amount of our money goes, then that's where the most amount of our focus is, and the budget becomes a type of vision casting for us, and so we can see where our value is based upon how we're spending our money and the focus where we are raising our money. So that the budget isn't just a list of numbers. The budget is a moral document. It shows us where our values are, and it shows us where our priorities are, and it's a visionary document. It gives us some goals for growth. And then we put in an anticipated income, and that anticipated income is based upon the previous year, and we include expected sources. So how much ever was given by tithes and offerings, how much ever was given through congregational offerings, community offerings, and then if we expect to do anything extra, then we include that into our budget as well. And then our expenses include our operations, our local ministry, and global ministry. Now, what is global ministry? Global ministry is a better way of saying our assessments. We don't like that word. I don't like that word. There's a lot of frustration and a lot of disdain and for paying our portion to the connectional church. So I'm going to talk about that connectional budget right quick. And that's a part of being that the connectional budget, and whether you're AME, United Methodist, United Church of Christ, Baptist, Pentecostal, we all pay into the parent organization. We pay into the larger body. And for us, we call it the connectional church. So we're not just paying so that people get money. We're not paying people to get fat off of our meager offerings. Our connectional budget is what other churches call global missions, worldwide ministry. Our connection, the way the connectional budget is divvied out, how we get what we pay annually, and we pay it twice a year. There's a connectional budget that includes everything it takes to operate the AME Church worldwide. And then that budget is spread out over the different districts based upon the number of churches and the economic strength of that district. And so we're in the 5th district. So the 5th district gets their portion of the overall budget. And then the 5th district finance committee, which is made of leaders from every conference, they divvy out that 5th district budget to each annual conference based upon the number of churches and the presumed financial strength of that conference. So then that pot of the annual conference budget comes back to us here in the Missouri Conference. And that Missouri Conference budget is divvied up to each local church based upon the membership and the presumed financial strength. Now, they might believe in us a little bit more, but essentially the budget is set to be about 10% of a local church's income. So it's basically paying a tithe to the connectional church. So the resources that we pay into the connectional church, every district has a different parts of the connectional church that we contribute to. In the 5th district, we contribute heavily to Payne Seminary, to Wilberforce. We contribute to contribute to mission churches in Africa and India, and to college in Liberia, and a seminary as well. Now, that's not the totality of our budget, but that's a big portion of what the connectional budget goes to. Another part of the connectional budget goes to our periodicals. That is our Christian Recorder. The Christian Recorder is the oldest paper in print that was created by people of African descent in the time of Reconstruction. This was the paper for the African American community in a time when there was no other resources. It was created out of the AME Church, and it's still in existence. And so and we can all subscribe to that. Of course, it looks a lot different now than it did back then, but and we can be subscribers, and we can look at it online, and we can buy our own copies to come to our house. But a copy will come to the church, or 2 copies to the church, and they contain stories and articles from all over the connection, and information that is essential to us as AMEs about our connectional church life and our community. We have a Journal of Christian Education, that is research documents. We have 2 different missionary magazines that are produced. We have a youth magazine that is produced, a Christian education magazine that is produced. All of these periodicals are to bring information and to unite us as a connection. And then, why be AME? We're preserving a legacy of hope and liberation. We're part of a prophetic tradition that has been in existence for over 2 centuries. And it's worth being part of. I don't want to be anything but AME. So income for a church comes from 4 different sources, 4 primary sources. The first source is tithes and income. Tithes. Tithes are 10% of our income. So on my job, I earn $1,400 a month. My tithe is $140. I have it pulled directly out and deposited into the church account through Givelify. Takes it right out. I don't even see it. Our tithe is our covenant with God. All things come of thee, O Lord, and of thine own have we given thee. Our tithes are a method of giving that was established in ancient days. It was based on a whole community that gave involuntarily. Nobody had the choice. If you were part of the community, you tithe. And the tithes were not just money, and were rarely money. Money only became the tithe when people started moving further away from the temple. The tithe was goats and chickens and cows and crops, bread and labor. Because the tithes were to take care of the priests and the Levites. The skilled laborers took care of the temple. And that model is obsolete. Tithing, I don't believe, carries a curse. I know that Micah says about the curse, but then the New Testament says that Jesus broke the power of the curse. So we do not believe that we live in the dispensation of curses, but we do live under the promises and and blessings. When we have a designated amount that we're setting aside in this tithe, this 10% is, a goal maybe. And what it demonstrates is that we have 100% reliance on God. Our offerings are gifts that honor God. Offerings were given to show thanksgiving. Offerings were given in petition, and offerings were given to show repentance. That was biblical offerings. Offerings are not tithes. An offering was what people gave aside from their tithe for a different purpose. The tithe, the only purpose of the tithe was sustaining the temple. The purpose of the offering was to win favor with God. Well, we don't believe that we have to win favor with God, that we can't buy God's favor, right? So our giving is not to get from God. Our giving is in response to God. Our giving is our thank you to God. Our giving is our agreement to be in partnership with God. Our giving is our demonstration of trusting. The sacrificial offering, sometimes you'll hear people say, let's give a sacrificial offering. The sacrificial offering was not giving blood from a turnip. The sacrifice was giving the best. So the best that we can do is not based upon an amount. The best that we can do is personal. And we give the very best that we can give. That's a sacrificial offering. Now, another type of offering is called a first fruits offering. And the first fruits offering is what we give right off the top. It's what we give before we do anything else. This is the first fruits offering. The type of offering and your commitment to tithing is your personal commitment. That is an expression of your relationship with God. If you give less, it doesn't mean that you love God less or that you trust God less, because less is relative. We're not in competition with each other. All we are is just trying to build the kingdom. And when we do our best, that's our natural thing. When we do that, the supernatural is when we've done our best and it still isn't sufficient, and then God brings resources from places that we never would have expected them to come. That's the supernatural. So God will do the supernatural when we have done the natural. So we sing this dedication, all things come of thee, O Lord, and it's of thine own that we have given unto thee. That's when that is our attitude of giving, then, it's not for anybody to say. Now, ideally, what each member would be able to do, is say, here's what the overall church budget is. There's this number of people. Let's divide this number of people by this dollar, and everybody give this chunk of money, and then we never even have to do a fundraiser. But that's not always realistic. That's rarely realistic. Some, whatever that amount would be, it would be far less than what their tithe would be. And for some, it would be far greater. And so that's where the scripture says that we shouldn't give compulsory out of or begrudgingly or out of necessity, that each one should give as they have purposed in their heart. And that's for some of us, that's where the growth is purposing it in our heart. Not giving just because we're at church and we all of a sudden feel a little convicted because it's offering time. And, do we have something or not? But purposing in our heart is another way of saying prioritizing it in our budget. So this year, as we're looking at our expenses and our income and our role in that, examining ourselves. Am I giving my best? Is this a sacrificial offering? Do I want to do a first fruits offering? Is it a tithe? What kind of gift am I giving? And am I doing it? Am I doing it as an investment in the kingdom, not out of obligation? And if you're feeling like you're giving out of obligation, I'm not going to encourage you to stop giving. I'm just going to encourage you to ask God to work on your heart so that your giving is joyful and joyous. So do we keep giving if the church isn't meeting in person? Yes, because the church still exists. The ministry is still happening. The kingdom is still being built. We're not giving to an organization. We're not giving to the building. We're not paying for worship service at the church. We're part of the whole. And so, yeah, we keep giving because we don't give to get. We give to be a part. We give because we're a part. And it's our response to God. So each of us are challenged to make intentional financial commitments in giving and serving. That is a way that the church is going to be sustainable long term. Churches have become more capitalistic. It's like we pay for a product. We serve to feel good, or we pay when we show up, like admission fees. But individually, when we examine our own heart, why I'm giving, how do I decide what to give? Why am I serving? How do I decide when and how to serve? And why do I hold back? And that's a question sometimes we have to ask ourselves. Why are we holding back? Are we holding back because we're afraid? Are we holding back because we don't think the church needs it? Are you holding back because you don't like the pastor? Are you holding back because it's just not, you don't like the way the money is spent? You're holding back because whatever your because is, and maybe you're not holding back. So, that's not to suggest that you are, but if you are holding back, if you're not giving your best, maybe it's just because, you want to go shopping or, whatever, so what is your why? And then that's for you and God to work through.